What's up guys, and welcome back to another video covering Pokémon Switch. Last episode we talked about the structure of the game series over time and how it could be sort of revitalized with the new game, and the question or the topic for today was the Rotom Dex. So while it's not directly linked to the Pokémon Switch, we're going to take a look at the Rotom Dex feature from Pokémon Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon to determine how it works as a feature and whether something similar would work in Pokémon Switch, extending it to the future. So to start off, what were the features of Rotom Dex? What do they actually provide and bring to the game? Well, there are a few different things. The first one was the map. Obviously he sits on the bottom screen, he takes up the whole bottom screen in the game unless the menus are open, so you can see him there with his eyes and the map. So this is the first time we had a real-time map in a Pokemon game, and you can see it there, and it offers the first feature. The second feature is direct access to the Pokédex, so while you can access it from the menu itself, you can also hit the centre of the screen on its sort of nose bridge area to open up the Pokédex straight away there. We're not going to talk about the Pokédex itself in this video because of course that's kind of separate. We have Pokédexes in every game, the style and the theme is always mixed up and matched up, so that's not really something to talk about here. We're talking about the container for it, I suppose. The final feature he actually brings in Sun and Moon is some level of dialogue, so every now and again as you go through your story he'll perk up with something similar and related to the current point of the plot, which might be like, oh, we need to go and do this now just to remind you in case you've forgotten, or just a general quiff. Of course this means at the end of the game he keeps repeating the same 3 or 4 statements over and over, which isn't very useful and it can get a bit boring. In Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon there are a few updates to the feature just to build on that, I suppose. The first one is the dialogue gets a boost, so he now asks you questions which you can answer, and there's some level of interaction there. And what this does is it builds up like a background value called affection, yes, similar to affection in Pokemon and Me, but affection for Rotom towards you. You can't see this anywhere from what I know. You might be able to measure it from what he's actually saying to you, but generally you can't really measure it. But this builds up over time as you interact with him and talk to him and reply to him, hence he asks you like, oh, can I call you master, or that sort of thing. So there is some level of friendship built up there. The other and the main update really is Roto Lotto, and this happens at random intervals during the games. He asks you, or his eyes start to glow yellow, so you can tap his eyes and you play Roto Lotto, which is just a lotto game, and you win a Roto Power. So Roto Powers are very similar to O Powers from Generation 6, in which they give you a boost like Roto Hatch, which increases the speed of hatching eggs, Roto Experience Points to increase the amount of experience points you have in battle, Roto Prize Money to increase prize money, etc. So we've seen it all before with O Powers, and we have it now here with Rotom Dex. So I'm going to talk about this very briefly now, and that'll be it for the video in terms of O Powers. Yes, we had it in Generation 6. We had nothing similar in Sun and Moon. It was a big detriment. A lot of people used it for hatching eggs when they were shiny hunting, for example. It was a good help to actually train as well as earning prize money where need be. And O Powers originally worked by you could activate them yourself, but also if you sent them to your friends, you could do you could send 2 to your friends that everyone used on yourself, which was helpful, but of course if you didn't have friends to do it with, you could still do it yourself. This is slightly different because you have to earn them from Roto Lotto, and you only have a limited amount, and they are like items rather than just O Powers which regenerated over time. So it's a similar feature, similar sort of mechanic there, except instead of time you actually have to be playing the Roto Lotto, which means that I remember on my first playthrough of the games I was ignoring Rotom, which meant I never played Roto Lotto because his eyes were always droopy, and it never appeared to play Roto Lotto, which meant I didn't get any at all. Whereas if you sit there and you constantly talk to him, yes, you get some, which is what we'll talk about now, or in a minute I suppose, another part of the feature as a whole. The final update he does in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon is the Z Rotom Power, which basically allows you to use Z moves twice in the battle. This only happens like when you have max affection. I never reached it in either of my playthroughs yet, so I don't know how it works as a feature particularly, but generally yeah, you can use 2 Z moves in a battle, which makes it easier, I suppose. Again, it's a love it hate it kind of thing. It doesn't really have any effect to online play, and of course if you haven't really interacted with Rotom too much over your story, or I don't know how much you have to interact with him with really, but it might be the case if you don't actually get max affection until late in the story, in which case the double Z move might not really help too much anyway. So there's that to it, but it's an extra sort of feature, an extra mechanic bonus. So we're going to talk about mainly the limitations of Rotom Dex and the iffy things. There are some good things about it, especially Roto Lotto giving you the Roto powers, because as I mentioned it was absent in Sun and Moon, so people do enjoy that. However, the execution maybe not the best. Before we go on further though, we're going to talk about the access to the features itself. This accounts for both Sun and the Moon and Ultra Sun and the Moon, and how you actually access the features of Rotom Dex from the lower screen, because of course, as I said, he is the only thing on the lower screen unless you open the menus up. Previous games, like X and Y, we had the PSS, same with Auras, except it was buried under the Dex nav, even though then you had loads of stuff on the Dex nav. You had access to the Pokédex, Pokemon, Bag, etc. You had 3 or 4 Dex nav tabs, one being the PSS, one being the navigate. There were 3 or 4 different things, and there's a lot to do on the bottom screen. So what can you do here with Rotom Dex? Well, first thing is, as I mentioned before, if he taps with sort of the nose bridge he's got between his eyes, you can access the Pokédex directly. You can also hit the eyes to talk to him. So when in Sun and Moon, he'll say just a random comment, and that'll be it. In Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, of course, if they're glowing, you can play Roto Lotto, but apart from that, generally you can do it and you can talk to him, and sometimes if they're glowing, you can talk to him, and if they're droopy, for example, as well, you can tap him and generally he'll ask you a question or something, and that's how that goes. The other thing you can do is you can tap around the edge of the screen, so just basically the bottom and the sides. If you tap there, you get to see Rotom spin around or move. I've called it spin because that's one of the actions he does, but you can zoom. It just does a little fancy action on the lower screen. It's not actually any feature to it. And of course, then finally you've got the map in the middle, so you'd think, alright, hit the map, it's going to open the map up so you can explore it. No. Apparently there's this section in the centre of the screen. I don't know exactly how large it is, but it's reasonably large. Right in the centre, if you tap in the centre of the map, he talks to you. You have to tap around the edge of the map to open up the map, so I can't tell you how many times in all 4 of the games really I've gone to want to see the map, tap the centre of the screen because that's where I'm aiming when I tap. I don't go to tap on the edge, I tap in the centre, and of course I just get Rotom talking to me, and I say, okay, how do I access the map? Do I tap his eyes? No, he's talking to me again. Do I tap around the edge of the screen? Oh no, I'm spinning around. Do I tap the middle? No, that's Pokédex, and I give up. So I don't know who designed this interface because it is terrible, but it's not an intuitive way to open the map. You think, I'll tap on the map and I'll get the map. Oh no, it doesn't work at all. So this is the first bad point. I don't know who designed it, but they should seriously have reconsidered this design. I don't know how it got through, because I don't know how many playtesters actually tapped it and didn't get the map they were expecting. I don't know how it happened, basically. So that's the first bad point about it. It's just not intuitive at all. There's no direction. Of course, we don't want too much direction, but at the same time, it just doesn't make any sense. So the next thing we're talking about is the interaction update between yourself and Rotom Dex in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Now this facilitates the Rotom power stuff, but we're not talking about that, we're just talking about the interaction itself. So the main issue we have with it is what you see on the screen now. His eyes, what we call drooping. Every now and again, if you don't talk to him, his eyes will droop down. Now you don't have to talk to him, but of course if you're running around and you look down at the bottom of the screen and he's looking like this, it looks like he's seriously depressed. It's just not a fun thing to see on the lower screen. So of course it makes you feel like you have to talk to him, and it's just a bit annoying. So you tap that, of course. It's almost a forcing thing to do. When you tap him, and you get to play Roto Lotto. As I said, if you don't do it, if you leave his eyes like that, he just won't play it at all. So it's forcing you to interact with him if you want to get the Roto powers. The other thing that happens if you build up his affection enough is he starts constantly speaking without actually being interacted with. So you can load up the game like I did earlier when I was testing this. You load it up and he starts speaking straight away. And one of the lines he likes to say is, "Hey, this is the part where I give you advice you didn't ask for." And this literally sums up what we're complaining about here. We don't want him to talk all the time. He says stuff like maybe, "Oh, your team looks out of shape. Do you want to use some healing items?" And then he gives you options of yes or no. And that happens basically if you've got 1 or 2 party members about half health. That happens straight away. So you go out of battle, he'll ask you. You say no. You go into maybe another wild battle. You come out again, he'll ask you again. You say no, and it just carries on. It's a cycle. If you open up a menu during the middle of this speech, he will start again when you come out of the menu, and it carries on. There's also like save a game, which can be helpful sometimes. But generally this extra speech is not helpful, especially the "here's where I give you advice you didn't ask for," because I literally didn't ask for the advice and I don't want it. The main issue of this as well is that this text and this speech ignores the speed of the text you've set on your game. So generally you can go and you can say like normal, fast, whatever, and most people have it on fast because you don't have to sit there and read through everyone's text. But Rotom Dex completely ignores this. He always talks at normal speed, which means, as well as the fact that you can't actually skip through any of this unwanted dialogue, you have to actually wait and sit and wait there for him to finish his dialogue before you can use him again. And I want to see the map. I want to know where I am on the map. I want to, where I can go on the map. I have to sit for him, talking and talking and talking, and finally I can use the map if I can figure out where to tap on the screen to find it. Now this links into, basically, he's a companion. He is a companion in our game, and companions in games, they rarely go down well. We've seen issues in the past, and we're going to talk about that later, but there are issues, mainly in the Zelda series, I would say, where we had companions that are not the best, but there are good ways to do companions, and again, we'll talk about that just in a minute. The final limitation we're looking at here is concerning the map. So we've talked about how to actually access it, but the map itself. It's the first real-time overworld map we've had in Pokemon. Previous games you've had maybe a town map and you can see where you are, but you can't see the map itself, you can't see details. Whereas in this game you can see the pathways, you can see the grass areas, and of course that links into the fact that Pokemon can only be found in certain grass patches some places, so of course it needs that, which is good. I liked being able to see it, and also links into the fact that we have a full 3D game without the ability to move the camera around, which means that sometimes if there's maybe a path towards the front of the screen, in sort of your peripheral vision where you can't actually see it, whereas if you had a 3D camera you might be able to look around it and look for it. You can't, so the map can be helpful in that sense to say, like, there's an area here, and you can get to it via here, so this is helpful, so that's definitely a bonus. But yeah, it can be some issues of course with this sort of thing. I found myself relying on the map more than exploration. Again, if we had a full 3D camera you might be able to sort of lessen on the map a bit, because you'd have this full 3D area and the full ability to look around. But the other issue the map I complain about mostly is the fact that it doesn't actually cover the whole area. So Brooklet Hill is one big area here, so whenever you're inside this Brooklet Hill, as you can see on this map here, you don't actually get to see inside it, you just get to see, oh yes, you're at the entrance to Brooklet Hill. I'm not going to show you inside it at all, so if you're used to using the map to look at these extra areas, you can't do it inside Brooklet Hill, as well as several other areres. Again, there's nothing for caves either. And of course there will be debates whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depending on how much you use the map. But yeah, it just doesn't cover doesn't cover every area. There we go. Which obviously is a bad thing if you're providing it for some areas and some not. The other thing to mention briefly is, of course, we have the flag on it. So while you're going through the plot, the flag tells you where to go. Again, this is probably a whole debate we could have about how you should be guided for a Pokemon game. Leads back to hand holding last week, because usually you should be open to do your own exploration. We don't want to be told basically what Rotom Dex does, which is go to this checkpoint, go to this checkpoint, go to this checkpoint, because what it does half the time is actually it robs you of the fun of enjoying a random battle encounter. So I'm pretty sure on your first walk up to Brooklet Hill, that flag is placed in the middle of the path to tell you that you're going to meet Howl and Gladion. It's not just put straight up Brooklet Hill to tell you that you get to Brooklet Hill. So that's the map there. So how can we improve these features and these downsides for a future maybe similar feature in Pokemon Switch, or maybe we just don't want this feature at all? So we'll start with the map since it's the freshest in our memories. So depending on how Pokemon Switch is, it's likely a map's going to return, a map of some sort of instance, so definitely a map as detailed as Alola, maybe more detailed, maybe less, who knows. So again, it depends how open the game is. If it's an open world area, then of course you're going to have a map. But thinking about Breath of the Wild, because that's always our comparison, Breath of the Wild has a very good map system. You can see it here, you can place any of these pins and any of these stamps down on the map where you want. The pins act as like a waypoint, the stamps obviously just tell you you've marked something here. Now of course, Breath of the Wild has got loads of stuff to explore and loads of stuff you might want to mark. Pokemon Switch probably won't. It's not like I want to return to this grass area. You could have stuff like, there's a surf location here, I'll return to it when I have surf. Maybe there's that, but it's not really too much to explore itself. So maybe stamps and pins are maybe not what you want, but definitely some form of map system will be likely to return. But basically what we want from a map is just a standalone control function that's not tied to something like Rotom Dex. When I want to see the map, I want to see the map. Don't make me sit here for 2 minutes while Rotom talks to himself. Moving then further and looping back into that companion discussion we had, Rotom Dex is basically the companion, and it's sort of the first companion we've had in a Pokemon game. There's never been someone there telling you what to do, apart from obviously your rivals, but when I say companion, it's something that's with you all the time. So companions generally in game history, they don't really go down that well, but of course the times they don't go down well are the times we hear about. The times they go down well are we don't hear about at all, because they're just another feature of the game. So for example, Breath of the Wild has got no companion in it, okay? Odyssey has got Cappy in it. So thinking about the Zelda series as a whole, we have, as I mentioned, stuff in the past that does and doesn't work. Navi from Ocarina of Time was the first big, sort of one of this. I can't think of the word at this point. It was not as bad as Rotom Dex because it was just like, hey, hi, listen. It would just be random sounds. Now this isn't intrusive on the gameplay. It's annoying, but it's not intrusive. It's not stopping you from doing anything or stopping you from accessing features while you wait for some text or something to happen. A Zelda companion that did become intrusive was Fi from Skyward Sword, who would literally maybe not intrude on your gameplay, but literally stop you at every point saying, this is this, do this, this is this, do this. It just didn't work that well. It didn't go down well at all. Hence why Breath of the Wild has probably got no companion, because they tried to do something different. I did mention that Odyssey's got Cappy in it. Now, Cappy is a good example of a companion that works well, because he's in the game, he's with you the whole game, but he's never intruding on your gameplay. Of course, he's with you in cutscenes, and he helps explain some sort of gameplay stuff to you at the start, but apart from that, the only time you'll hear from him is maybe when you unlock a new area, or you're working through the plot, and that will be a small speech bubble on the screen that says, well done, you did it, or haha, good job. Again, not intruding on the gameplay at all, because it's up there for maybe all of 2 or 3 seconds, and it's not stopping you from playing the game. That's a good example of a companion. That's what we want, or what works if you need a companion. Of course, Cappy is a whole gameplay element himself, so that makes sense. So Rotom Dex is an intrusive companion. Yes, okay, maybe it doesn't stop your gameplay, but as I mentioned, if you want to access the map, you can't until you've finished watching him talk. So it just doesn't work well. Imagine a good example I thought here, because he is a main feature himself, he gives access to the Pokédex, also gives access to the map. Think about Breath of the Wild, okay? It's got the Sheikah Slate. This thing gives you the map, this thing gives you a couple of options and features in the game. Imagine if this thing was sentient and spoke to you. That is exactly what Rotom Dex does. So imagine Breath of the Wild with a sentient Sheikah Slate. That would be horrible. I feel like it would change the whole pace of the game. It probably would annoy you more than most. The whole thing of Breath of the Wild is being to explore on your own and be in silence most of the time. And imagine a Sheikah Slate being like, ding, ding, oh, I've got a tip for you. Just wouldn't work at all. That's what Rotom Dex is like. So what do we do about it? Well, the judgment of Rotom Dex. So as we've sort of seen from this partner stuff, they're generally a detriment to the story and just don't work that well. They're a good thing when it's done like Cappy, of course, but mostly a detriment to the story. So what do? If we think about it, previous features in the games like the Pokétch and the Dex Nav, we've never had any problems with those. The Pokétch was a great feature. You had obviously all these different apps, you could access any of them, and they were all on the bottom screen. Rotom Dex gives you the map, and that's pretty much it. And obviously some interaction. So if you're into interaction, you're good with that. Of course, the Dex Nav gave you a bit more, and obviously people just love the Dex Nav generally. It was removed from the game, and we'll talk about that in a different video because it's a whole other topic. But generally, those two worked well. So we want the tools, the tools that Rotom Dex provides. Okay, the map, I suppose, access to the Pokemon Dex, and then or the Pokédex, and then finally Roto Powers or O Powers. They're good features. We just don't want to have this sentient being offering them to us. We just want access to them. So we want the tools, but we want to be able to define our own adventure. We don't want it to be forced down our throats by having a companion with us to constantly remind us what we're doing. That's my take on it, at least. Do let me know down below in the comment section what you think. Did you like Rotom Dex? Was it sort of something you tolerated, or was it something you just completely despise and you can't wait to get away from it and see hopefully Pokemon Switch doesn't have something similar? Let me know that down below in the comment section, and of course do let me know your thoughts on the topic for next episode, because it's a good one and I know a lot of people will be excited for it, and that is region. So where will the next Pokemon region be based on? Will it be based on the UK, a cold area like the Arctic or Russia, something like Indonesia, Egypt, China? Do let me know your thoughts on that down below in the comment section, because there's a whole host of real world locations and areas that have not been touched yet by the Pokemon series that are all prime candidates for the next region. Do let me know your thoughts, and of course that will be covered next episode, but this will be it for me for today, so I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye my friends.